Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Tuesday the 16th of April. So looking at the euro dollar first, and well, we met with resistance in the last couple of days on the euro trying to push beyond this daily 50. It is more than a daily 50. There's other resistance points depending on the analysis you're looking for. Those that look at cloud formation, it's run into the underside of a cloud, and that's basically we see this occasionally. In fact, I'm just going to drag it over for a minute if I can. He says dragging it over. There we go. So let's run it back into the underside of the cloud formation. Now we see this quite a lot going on there. I mean, sometimes a good bit of news to surge it through, but generally it does provide a slow up, plenty of resistance. Now, even if it starts pushing into there, I mean, as with any cloud, you'll probably get a bit of turbulence, and well, there's certainly potential for that. Short term, it's a real mess. It's not quite put a lower high, or as it just it came down and it pitched into the double bottom almost there of this current picture. My temptation, I said temptation, but if it breaks the lows here, I would possibly look at the short side of this, but it hasn't got a lot of distance in it, even down to some near-term support. It's only got about 15 pips or so, maybe a bit more, but down towards the sort of well, down towards its weekly pivot. Actually, it's just sitting below there, maybe a bit more than 15 pips, maybe 20 ish. So 78, 80, yeah, by the time it breaks down, so about 20-ish pips down, which is a possibility, but we'll see how it moves this morning. It could of course break towards the upside, or run in. There's a trend line that should be on here across the tops here, and it could just run into that and the daily R1. But it is very pinched, and like these markets, as we look through them, look into cable, they're not that easy to read this morning. In fact, look at the daily on cables. You could draw a trend line across the low there and expect it to just roll over. Now it could do. We've got some data out this morning at 9:30 that will affect the pound. The average earnings, well, it's the employment report, which includes average earnings and unemployment rates. So that could create a bit of enough volatility to maybe to pitch us out of here. We'll see. Some weeks it just gets sort of a little bit overlooked, but it's a quiet week at the moment. Maybe it'll be enough to pitch us through and drive us down here. So I'm watching that carefully in terms of if that breaks. In fact, if you come to the 60-minute time frames, you can look. I was talking about it earlier yesterday morning as a bit of a head and shouldery pattern there. It broke the top of the other shoulder there, so it sort of killed that, but it still looks like, well, maybe it's already broken the trend from that neckline of what was that pattern. But chopping along here, quite like the S1 if the figures, but I mean, we've got to wait for those figures to come out. It may take us all the way down there quite quickly. Hasn't quite got into the weekly pivot, it's just fractionally being missed at the moment, but that also, well, that's a target before the S1, but the S1 would look quite good. So that's the pound. Dollar yen, oh, crikey, how can it go into such a small price action? I think we saw yesterday. In fact, I'm going to have to get rid of it and move it across the side here so you can actually see it. There was a day yesterday in the yen's life. It's got to be the smallest day we've had. Well, arguably there was one smaller, but or equally as small, but you can see we've already done just about the same range near enough. We're not far off doing the same range here. It certainly wasn't a clear move yesterday. What we're looking for at the moment, well, there's the weekly pivot that sits below, which could provide a buy potential. It could also set up as a target for those that wanted to look at it. It did double top into yesterday morning with a bit of divergence, and we saw the reactions to that, but then it looked half decent off there. It bounced, it just couldn't get back above those highs. So at the moment, maybe we've got more downside on the yen to come into play, and a move down, as I say, towards that weekly pivot is possible. Aussie dollar, well, yesterday, a little inside day. We've had data throughout, or actually in a minute, should have been out. The minutes out have been out, and let's just check on that. Yep, there was a mention there was no strong case for any near-term adjustment in rate, so there we go. Quite neutral, but maybe not what the markets really want to hear. So quite a reaction to that. Relatively, but it is still putting higher lows in, higher highs at the moment, so it's got potential to push on. Is this, I mean, it looks messy if we come down to this, and look at what a scraggy old day we had yesterday, and well, we could be in store for much the same on the Aussie dollar today, so it's probably best avoided at the moment. Canadian dollar, another style that never happened. It looks fundamentally, it looks like it could have further upside. Technically, well, it's all over the place. Having seen data out yesterday, which moved it. Actually, when I was doing a recording, it didn't look very much, and then I looked again. It was over 70 odd pips. It was quite a miss, and actually, it wasn't that bad. Some of the data, and I was quite surprised it did move over. I was almost tempted to short it, and then thought, no, I don't trade the Canadian dollar. It draws people in, and sure enough, it did draw me in. So there's a good miss. But a divergence where it's sitting at the moment, has got daily pivot below, could at some point sell off and move towards that area, but it's a mess, and you just no obvious sort of it's a ranging market at the moment, and well, could be looked to be traded within that range, but it's been in there for nearly 2 weeks, over 2 weeks. Maybe now it will break out, but I'm wary of it, and we'll keep away. So that's pretty much it. It's not the nicest morning out there for the markets in terms of what may happen. Well, I'm watching the euro and the pound as ever. I prefer the pound to the downside if it was to move, but I can't even really get into a trade until the news has come out at 9:30. So there we go, maybe a quiet one this morning. I hope you have a great one, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye for now.